in 1986 is when I moved here to Moline. I'd finished grad school out east and grew up in Indiana and wanted to come back to the Midwest. And so I was lucky enough to be hired at the Deere Wiman House in Butterworth Center as their program coordinator. Since then, it's expanded to handling the programs, the collections, the archival work, and the public relations too. But one of the things that I just loved was the swimming pool. It was an incredible structure. This is how I first knew the pool.
Okay.
Set north of the Deere Wiman house, down the hill. You just saw the rooftop of the building, of a wonderful indoor swimming pool. And it was so much, just really made me wonder, how did it come about, and who used the pool? And looking back, we were lucky enough that we could find a whole series of photographs of the pool. Found in a closet was a box of 8x10 photos mounted on cards. They were all taken by a Deere and Company photographer back in 1916 to 1917. The building was being built. And what was great was that through the whole building process and the finished building, this photographer would come and stand at the same spot as the building progressed. So it was wonderful to be able to see it rise up. But let's go back to the beginning and figure out how the pool came to be. Of course, Deere Wiman House was built by Charles and Mary Deere in 1872 is when they moved in with their 2 young daughters. The house, typical Victorian house of the day, looks very different today, of course, but this is how it looked back in late 1880s. Now, those 2 daughters of Charles and Mary Deere, Anna and Catherine. Catherine, of course, we know married William Butterworth, but Anna married William Wiman. He was from Staten Island, New York, and that's where they lived the first few years of their marriage. They had 2 sons, Charles in your upper left, and Dwight here in front. Now, these 2 boys lived the first few years in Staten Island. Then they were back in Moline with their parents before the family of 4 moved to California. We believe it was because Dwight had some asthma problems. But that's where they were living when in 1906, the mother, Anna, passed away. The boys were young, probably pretty close to the age they are in this picture. And at that point, William Wiman and the 2 boys moved back to Moline to be with their grandmother, Mary Deere. Charles had died in 1907. So they moved into Deere Wiman House looking like this, the second view of the house. And this is where the boys finished growing up. Of course, they were off to school part of the time, but in 1913, their grandmother died. 1914, their father passed away. And at that point, Charles Wiman was heading off to Yale University, and Dwight was heading off to boarding school out east. And this picture I love because right here in the second row, in from the right, that's Charles Deere Wiman. And it's some big party at Harvard. But there is Catherine Deere Butterworth, right in the second row center, kind of looking off to her side there. She traveled out to be a chaperone at this party at Harvard, or excuse me, Yale. She was the boys' guardians after their parents' death. So I just love this picture. But while Charles was at Harvard, excuse me, I keep saying Harvard. That's not good. Yale. He joined a group of young college men called the First Yale Flying Unit. Now, these group of men were all wanting to learn how to fly airplanes because they were sure that the US would enter the war at some point, and they all wanted to be ready to join the Air Force and participate in the war. But in about 1916, early 1917, Charles Wiman was involved in a plane crash and a training flight. The pilot was killed and Charles Wiman was injured. And in this picture, here he is sitting on the ground. I just happened across this picture on the internet, typed in, Googled First Yale Flying Unit, and this picture happened to come up. But Charles Wiman was injured. Mrs. Butterworth was called. She rushed east and he recovered, but he was no longer physically able to join the Air Force because of his injuries. He did walk again. He had some leg injuries, but he was able to walk. And the story has always gone that Mrs. Butterworth decided that swimming would be great physical therapy for her nephew, Charles Wiman. And that was the story that I was told, that Mrs. Butterworth had built the swimming pool just for him and his physical therapy. So Catherine Deere Butterworth, that's the story we have. I had no proof that it was true, but that's what I had been told. So in late 1916, early 1917, she started building the pool. She hired a local architect, Oscar Eckerman. Oscar was a company architect for Deere and Company. So he built a lot of big factory buildings, big, strong, solid built buildings. And, but he did do some outside work. We know that he also designed the Butterworth Garage about 1910. But he was tapped to do the swimming pool. And luckily we still have the architectural plans from this. But the pool construction, as I said, sat north of the house, down the hillside. So it was quite a hole that had to be dug to begin building this incredible building. They did have to dig a tunnel from the pool back up to the house. I enjoy this picture because it shows that they didn't have the big Deere and Company earth moving equipment. This was hand dug. We have another picture coming up. It shows, horses hauling dirt out of the way too, pulling it out. But what a job to build a tunnel that is almost 240 feet long from the house down to the swimming pool. I like this picture also because here we're seeing the opposite end. We're at the north end of the building looking at the pool up to the Deere Wiman house there stretching. We see the tunnel right up here, and you can already see that the tunnel's completed because they filled it in now. Now, we're back at the south end of the pool, looking down. It's starting to take shape. The driveway leads from the house down and curves around the swimming pool. And you can see up here, here's the driveway, to wind around through the ravine and exit out on 10th Street. That was original to the 1872 design, to have that driveway. So they didn't lose the driveway, they just dug down next to it to build the swimming pool. So here the pool is starting to take shape. The actual pool itself measured 28 feet wide and 60.5 feet long. The depth of the pool, you went from 4 feet from the shallow end down to 8.5 feet at the deep end. Now the roof is going up. What I like about this picture also is I showed it to a construction man, and he keyed right in this lower right-hand corner to this rebar webbing. He was really interested in that. He said, boy, I didn't realize they used that back in 1917. That really strengthened the concrete a lot. The roof's up. We had windows all the way around that you'll see in a little bit. And then another set of windows up here, which I'll show you how they open and close those in a little bit. Here we're inside the pool now. You can see the roof going up. Here's those windows up along the top here, and these wonderful windows along the side. Noticed how the brick wall comes up a little bit here, because that you're going to see something different later. Then down at the north end, this is starting to take shape. We had the men's dressing room, or actually the women's was on the left, men's is on the right. Upstairs was a little seating area that you'll see in a little bit. Back outside, we had the driveway still over here, and the driveway is running right along this front corner. And then there were steps that you could come from the driveway out and down and come in here, besides coming through the tunnel. Now we're down at the north end of the building, where you see that dressing rooms and the upstairs sitting room taking shape. Also very pretty up here is these rooftop gardens that are on each side. Then a walkway that went from the rooftop garden on the east side over to that driveway. You know, it's Lisa mentioned that when growing up, that she didn't even realize there was a pool there. It was kind of hidden. It didn't block the view of the house at all. I also think about when it was being built. People probably didn't realize what was going on when it was being built, except for that row of houses on the avenue right below the pool house. This picture, here we've got the men working to lay the tile inside the pool building. What I like about this picture is partly showing the workers at work. You don't always get those pictures. Sometimes they're posed or just standing there. But here you can see, of course, they're stopped in their work, but the men, how they were laying that tile in the bottom of the pool. And you can see that the sides and all the way around, that's all been tiled already. So they're finishing with the floor of the pool. Now, I showed this picture to an elderly gentleman years ago who told me that he used to do tile work. And I said, well, I've got a picture I want to show you. And I showed him this picture and he was just loved seeing it. But he said, oh, they used Italian tile. And I said, how can you tell that by looking at this picture? He said, well, that was the wonderful thing about Italian tile is that it would be shipped from Italy, but it would come in these great wood boxes. He said they were just wonderful boxes, very sturdy. And he said the other thing about Italian tile is that the company in Italy would press into the back of each tile as they were being made the initial of the person who paid for the tile. And I thought that was fascinating. I stored that piece of information away in my head, and the pool was still standing at that time, and I didn't think anything more about it. But then years later, that story will come back to me. But here they are, they're still laying tile. It's still taking shape. Notice those windows along the sides. Underneath, those are all steam heat registers to warm the building. Another shot, looks like they finished tiling the bottom of the pool. It was white tile, and then the darker stripes and these emblems here and here, those are were a real pretty blue tile design. They were putting water in the pool to kind of test it out. And then here we go. They've cleaned everything up. They've emptied the pool. Everything is ready. Looks like it's ready to furnish. One thing I want you to notice up here along those rooftop windows, this piece right here, there's one over here. Those were, I don't know whether to call it a pulley or a gear, but those could be turned and it would open these windows up along the top to let air in. Next picture, they've now got the pool filled with water and they've hung all the light fixtures. These are wonderful. They look almost like a tulip hanging from the ceiling. And then down here, we've got that balcony up above. This area here, there's the diving board here, and then it goes straight outside to the north side of the building with the dressing rooms and a clock right up here. Now they started furnishing the building. We had these chairs. Luckily, we still have a couple of them that we found. They actually are metal, but they fold up. The seat is a canvas. Too badly, it's sad to say we don't have this table anymore, but we do have two of these benches. And then looking towards the south end, towards the tunnel to the house, and the diving board. And then here's the entrance to the tunnel. The tunnel, as I mentioned, is about 240 feet long. It's still there. It's sealed off here at this end, at the pool end, but it is still open up in the what's called the basement trophy room at the Deere Wiman house. So we can still look down the tunnel. There's a great echo, but it's just a long, long ramp all the way down. And so what was wonderful about that was that the family, when they wanted to use the swimming pool, you didn't have to go outside in the wintertime. You could just go right down the tunnel. Here we are, a close-up of the balcony. You can see that clock. Luckily, before the building was demolished, we did get that clock out, so we still have it. And then the balcony area up here, we're going to see a close-up of it right here. Wonderful little sitting room with more arts and crafts style furniture. The desk here, some chairs, these French doors and French windows out onto this balcony area with chairs also. You can't see it in this picture, but right behind the door here, I discovered two wood frames, one on each side, and at the top, there engraved in the wood was a W. And I did pull those off and save those. The ladies' dressing room on the west side of the building consisted of a lovely dressing table, a sink, a toilet, and then there was also a shower area. When I came, this dressing table was still there, so we were able to save it. The men's dressing room on the other side, they didn't have a dressing table, but they had a sink and a wonderful multi-jet shower. And then on windows on two sides of each of those rooms, there was wonderful stained glass piece. I was able to save one of those. And then here you can see those steam heat registers in the dressing rooms also. And then a nice close look at the rooftop gardens when they were all decked out with the flowers. These are those windows I mentioned that are in each of the dressing rooms. And then that walkway from the driveway over to the rooftop garden, these big urns. Can you imagine the amount of time taken planting all of these each spring? And those wonderful flower boxes on the outside of the buildings too. Close up of the entrance to the north end of the building. What I wanted to show you here was the terracotta tiling that was all along here. We were able to save a couple of those. In the late 80s, there was talk about what are we going to do with the pool. It was beginning to have a lot of problems. Wasn't usable as a pool. We did have a lot of vandalism down there. And most importantly, we didn't have the money to restore the building. And then what do you do with it? Because it wasn't an easily accessible building. And the hard decision was made to tear the building down, which was very hard for me to handle. But I was dating a nice young man at the time, and I told him that I wanted to try to salvage some pieces, and he was game to help me try. And so he was up on a ladder along here, trying to cut out any tile that he could so that I would have some to save. We also removed that clock inside and various other pieces that I'll tell you about in a little bit. I think I decided at that point that on a hot summer day, if he's willing to do that, that maybe he's a keeper. And I did marry him the next year. And so we've been married over 30 years now. But I'd say him up there on a tall ladder trying to cut out terracotta tiles was definitely my reason for keeping him. But here we go with the finished whole look at the exterior of the north end. Just a spectacular building. The house is way back here. And we have this wonderful lawn area, the steps up, little fountain here, just in these rooftop gardens. I mean, how special was this building? It just, if I could go back in time and see it in its heyday, it would really be wonderful. Now, we were lucky that we found just a couple of items that told me about one of the big parties that the Wimans had. Charles Deere Wiman, of course, it was built for him for physical therapy, but then he married in 1920, and he and his wife had 2 daughters, and that was from 1920 until Mrs. Wiman's death in 1976. So there were many years where the family used the pool extensively, just for their family, but also for parties. One party, we found this picture where they had constructed what looks like a prow of a steam wheeler over that balcony area. And out over the diving board was the prow of the ship. So I kind of think when people arrived, if they came down through the tunnel, they'd come through the door and they'd see the pool and it would look like the boat was coming at them. We know that this Showboat Party, that up in the balcony, they had a small combo playing music. I'm sure there were dancing around the pool. I don't know if they went swimming, but it really would have been a wonderful, wonderful party. Now let's look at a couple pictures that is how I remember the pool building. Even in this condition in the late 80s, I could tell that it was at one time a spectacular structure. One thing I want you to notice is those steam registers are gone, and they've changed the windows to much larger windows. It's too bad because those were beautiful old windows that they did have there with the steam registers. But they must have decided it wasn't an efficient way to heat the building. So they took those out and put in this drop radiator heater to warm the building. We're not quite sure when they did this. I'm thinking maybe in the 50s. One other thing I want you to notice is right here, there's that blue tile work. They're about 1 inch square blue tiles that did these in this area here. Now that boyfriend of mine at the time, we were down in the pool seeing if we could cut any of this out. The problem was that the tile work, if you remember from that early tile picture of them laying the tile, you can see that in the pool, they laid the tile directly on wet concrete. That was an old way of doing the tile work. Today, tile work is kind of done on quick set. And that's why sometimes tiles come loose in your bathroom shower and pop out. When it's laid in concrete like this, they aren't going to pop out. And so the only way we could save peace is to have quite a large chunk of concrete on the back of it. But we went around the room and we thought, okay, let's see if we could get these out. The subway tile here, of course, was attached really well. But these little pieces right here and here, for some reason, the blue tiles only are set in quickset. And we carefully were able to pop out the blue tiles of one whole pattern so that I could lay them out and show what the pattern was. And as I mentioned, we were able to save this. I saved a section of the railing up here, a couple pieces of wood. We also, as I mentioned, here's the tile work. Here's the close-up of the design. It's a little hard to see, but can you see the letter that's pressed into the back of that tile? It's a B. And when we were able to pop those out and I turned it over and I just couldn't believe it. I said, it's a B. And John said, what's that mean? And so I told him the story of the Italian tile work, that the person who paid for the tile, their initial was pressed into the back. And so that was my proof that Mrs. Butterworth paid for the tile in the pool building. We do have 4 of the chairs, 2 of the benches. Here's the sitting room. Here's those pieces I was able to save right here. There is a W right at the top. The furniture was all gone, sadly. Don't know what happened to it. Here's the dressing table that we still have. Look at the wonderful little tile work on the floor in the dressing rooms. And this room, it's right off the men's dressing room. There's an archway here that goes out to the pool, and then the other end, it goes into the men's dressing room. And inside, there was this large porcelain table with one leg in the corner, and the back side along the 2 sides is on a ledge, all tiled. The room was all tiled. And then this plumbing, that partial plumbing underneath. And I realized that this was a sauna room, that this piping would have come up hot water and would have heated the table. So you could lay on the table, you could lay towels on the table and warm the towels. There was also these register units here to heat up the room. So what a wonderful little sauna that they had right there off of the pool. Now, before the building was demolished, I decided, let's see if I can figure out how to save this table. It, of course, weighs quite a bit, but we chipped out tile all the way along the top 2 sides, and to see if we could lift it up, or if it was bolted in, we knew it was just going to break apart. But luckily, it was just resting on that ledge. And so once the tile was broke loose up here and underneath, we could just lift the table and the leg would come out. Took us 6 men to carry this piece outside, load it in the pickup and bring it back up. We still have it. I imagine our grounds crew wonders why I wanted to keep this, but it was just too spectacular not to keep. It's not something I can move around and display, but it's just too wonderful for me to let it just be broken up in the demolition. Another area that I found really interesting was beneath the dressing rooms, there was a staircase that went down to the basement. and it was the mechanical room. The picture on the left, this was actually about a 3-4 foot tall tunnel that ran all the way around the perimeter of the pool. And the piping went up through there for filtration and all that. But I did not crawl down the tunnel and go all the way around. That seemed a little too scary to me. The picture on the right is there were a couple of rooms opposite of the pool itself, down in this basement. And they were filled with a real fine sand to use for filtration. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing, the contractor, I had walk through the building with me to see if I could learn about the construction. You can see kind of lines along the walls here. You could also see that out in the main basement room too. He said that was an early technique where a board would be mounted and then the concrete poured up to it. That would be dried, and then another board would go on top and they'd come up to the next height, and they just keep working up. And of course then the wood would be removed, but those lines would remain. And he said that was really fascinating for him to see how it worked and how strong it was. Here's the pool towards the end. Besides those windows changing, another big change is they took off the rooftop gardens at one point. Maybe when they took out the steam heat registers and expanded these windows, that may be when they took that off, along with that walkway that came over to the driveway. They then put these hip roofs on here with the tile work. Not sure why they did that. Through the tree here, you can see that terracotta tile that we were trying to save, some of those pieces. So a lovely green and then a row of terracotta color tile along the top. Now, another sad day for me was when I was called, when I got to work, to tell me that there had been some more vandalism down at the pool building. Remember all that wonderful balustrade that went across here? Someone or someones had come at night and smashed all of it to pieces. And it just broke my heart. This was not a job of some kids, because you needed the strength with swinging a crowbar to break all these pieces up. It was just heartbreaking. We were able to save a couple of urns, flower urns, one of which sits at the entrance to the Deere Wiman garden today. We use it there. And then the week that the pool building was to be torn down, I couldn't handle it, and I decided to take vacation that week. But I did ask someone on the grounds to snap a few pictures as it went down. I did talk to one of the contractors, and he said the building really fought and was really tough going down, that they really had to work at breaking up the tile, because remember, it was set in nice, thick concrete. But most of the debris was pushed into the pool, and then that was all covered over with dirt. We have a nice big open grass space down there now. But I'd rather remember it as this. I'm happy that we were able to save some tile samples, that sauna table, the clock, some of the furniture. And a number of years after the pool went down, we had to do some roof repair on the Deere Wiman carriage house. And they called me and said, Gretchen, up in the attic of the carriage house, I didn't realize there was an attic. We found some things that you might want to come look at. So I went up to the second floor of the carriage house, climbed a ladder through a trap door in the ceiling, and I looked into that attic space, and I saw some pieces of an organ that we brought down. Not sure where those came from. And then off in the corner, there was a whole number of fixtures. And somebody said, "What are those?" And I said, "I know what they are. They're these light fixtures." They had taken those all down and put up ugly lights later, probably when they took out the registers and changed the windows here. But they had saved all of those. They're still up in the attic, except for one. I brought one down. The rest of them, I left them up there because they're as safe there as anywhere else that I could store them. But I did bring one down. Wonderful long pole with these glass shades all the way around. Really would have been just a great place to have a party. Can you imagine? We do know that the family let others use the pool. After Charles Wiman's death in 1955, excuse me, Mrs. Wiman let two different groups use the pool. She let the Y use it as a place for swimming classes for mothers of young children. And then she also let the Lutheran Hospital and the Moline Public Hospital nursing students come over and use it certain days of the week. Now, we were lucky that we found a letter from Miss Brooks, who was in charge of the Lutheran Nursing School. And she wrote Mrs. Wiman to thank her for letting the students use the pool once again that summer, and that she had told them the rules of the swimming pool, which were that they could not come to the pool in their swimsuits. They had to come in their street clothes, across the grounds, not through the tunnel, but across the grounds to the building and change into their swimming suits there. And they had to wear a shower cap, or a bathing cap. But she did let them use it for many years. And I still will have women older than me tell me that they, at one time, that they remembered swimming in the pool. And I said, "I bet you were a nursing student, weren't you?" And they were. In fact, 2 years ago, I had the, I think it was a 50th anniversary group of hospital nursing students that came and toured the house. And then I showed them the display we have on the tunnel. But it was a wonderful structure. I'm sad that we still don't have it to enjoy today. There's a lot of wonderful buildings that are gone now in the Quad Cities. And I would say that this is one of the best that used to be here in the Quad Cities. Um, I know we can't save everything, but I sure wish we could have saved the pool. But boy, was it special. Thank you for joining us this month.